in which we continue to recognize and promote positive, impactful individuals. The Sports Shop with Reese and K-Mac, Salute to Champions, would like to recognize this individual for their contribution.
Man, it is special when we get a chance to do this. We do this each and every year, and this year is no different. Salute to Champions Awards, and right now, I won't, with no further ado, I get a chance to introduce Dr. Terrence Ruth. Will be joining us here on the Sports Shop. 2023 Salute to Champions recipient. Good morning, Dr. Terrence Ruth.
How are you? Pleasure to be here.
Nice having you. One of the questions I always like to ask is I just try to get to know individuals, and we talk about Salute to Champions and the impact. Give me an idea of when you think about Black History Month and social impact and where we are today. How would you sum up where we are today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question for our country coming out of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very rich history, especially in North Carolina, a very rich history of organizers, idea creators, innovators, and I've had the chance to be in communities where there's certain underserved communities that feel that their ideas are not valuable.
Ooh.
So we've gotten to the very point where the ideas, the thing that you think of, is not valuable. But we have a history of amazing thinkers who birthed and created things from scratch. And so I've been infatuated with really trying to understand how do we, increase the trust so people can feel that their ideas, what's in their brains, the things that they think about matters.
Nice.
Man, we're rocking, as you always do, identifying individuals who's done great things in their respective fields, but more importantly, have to encourage others to do the same. Dr. Ruth, how did you get in this space? Have you always, growing up, have you always been interested in this particular space, the community, social justice, things of the nature? Just give us some ideas of how all this developed.
I would say I've been blessed to be born into a house with a mother and father who leaned our family into this idea of passion and having empathy and being in community. So our family sort of leaned us in that way.
Sure.
So from the very beginning, we were in community. Sometimes we didn't want to be.
I can imagine that, yeah.
But it was from that upbringing that I entered the world of education. And when I received my first job, it was actually in a juvenile detention center. And the kids were marching to class in jumpsuits. It was almost like a prison.
Wow.
And that's really what opened up my eyes around the trends that you see at a macro level. Rather than drilling down to the individual human being, those trends was alarming to me.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
That's very interesting. We're talking to Dr. Terrence Ruth, class of 2022, Salute to Champions, staying right there in the space, 2023, Salute to Champions in the space that you're in. Talk to us about one of the things that's really important to you under the social justice umbrella is your Justice Love Foundation. So we want you to be able to highlight that and tell us what that's about.
Yeah, so the Justice Love Foundation in early 21 was absorbed by the United Way. And the United Way launched this anti-racist fund. That anti-racist fund allowed for the philanthropic world to seed invest individual leaders. So Kerwin Pittman was a part of that. Anna Blackman was a part of that. So what we felt that these social justice organizations oftentimes ignore individuals within their organization that's really doing the work. And so we wanted to create a fund that would seed invest individuals, not organizations, that are on the front line doing work. And then we took them through a whole year of creating ideas through design thinking, and after that, we seed invested their idea for their community.
And that's how you really have impact in the community and with organizations, as well as some of the entrepreneurs.
No, it was fascinating to see how they went from advocacy to entrepreneurship. That's really that really was the pivot. And just see how flexible their minds were around just understanding the problem and then leaping over to understanding the solution. So it was really powerful to observe.
Good stuff.
Outstanding. Doctor, there was one question came to mind when you were just answering Pam's question is, as a professor at NC State, and as a professor, looking into the faces and the eyes of young minds, semester after semester, year after year, what's the one common theme that you kind of try to employ or deploy to connect with those young minds?
Yeah. Critical thinking. I know that there's some terms around critical that has become very controversial.
Oh, yeah.
But critical thinking is foundational to democracy. So you have to be able to ask the question of the person who's writing that text. So I tell them once that textbook is written, it's old.
That's right.
And we need your brain to bring contemporary knowledge to that textbook.
Right.
So I tell them, challenge the textbook and challenge me. I say it's only then do you become a master of social work. It's only then that you become a master of your craft. And so I grew up watching the late Kobe Bryant, and it was only when he retired I realized how fascinating his practice was. That's when I realized that Mamba mentality.
Yes.
So I said, how do I do that in the academic world? So my 8-year-old son, all he knows is books. That's all. My jump shot is the books. So I'm literally in books all the time. So my son only knows my father is always in a book.
Right.
And so I think for our students, if you're going to fully understand and be prepared once you leave that classroom, you have to be a Mamba mentality in
the text.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Nice.
We are talking to Dr. Terrence Ruth, 2023 Salute the Champions class. One thing I said earlier before you got here is you've had some amazing jobs. So if you had to recap, going back, maybe with NCAA, what were you? You started with the.
I was the executive director for the NAACP, and then the national vice president for programming for repairs of the breach.
So how you got from there to where you are now?
Yeah.
And with this vision, what's next? I mean, you've had the most interesting jobs.
I have to say, I remember walking into my interview for the NAACP, and the person it was the board that interviewed me, but my orientation was Dr. Barber and Attorney Al McShirley. And when they walked me in to give me the orientation, I'm used to traditional orientations.
Right.
They started naming names of organizers in history in North Carolina. They were giving me the weight of the position. They didn't tell me, okay, this is gonna be your office. Here's your key. They said this is the weight of the work in the NAACP in North Carolina. And I have to say that job was fascinating. But what was also amazing for me is when we relaunched the Poor People's Campaign in D.C. It's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to have to organize a similar program. And it was fascinating. And what was powerful about the whole thing is I got a chance to observe Dr. Barber's leadership at a national stage. And he only put voices of those who are underserved on the mic. There were celebrities everywhere. There were politicians everywhere. He said, no, we want to hear directly from those who are being impacted the most. And that, to me, stood out to me, quite frankly, because most people would have leaned into the celebrity, leaned into the politician. But that job, I think, was pretty fascinating, something to remember.
You've had some cool ones.
Outstanding. We talked to Dr. Terrence Ruth, one of our 2023 Salute to Champions recipients right here on the Sports Shop. He's KMAC. And, just hearing the jobs, just reading about the jobs you've had, opportunities that you've had, all the things. But for people that are listening that look at you and say, I don't have 3 master degrees. I don't have a PhD. I don't have these tremendous opportunities. Who am I to help? What do you say to those individuals?
I got to say, I spent the season trying to share that democracy functions at the voter level, not at the county level or the state level. It's at the voter level. So the assumption is that this voter is fully confident in ideas, that voter is fully informed in what they need, right, and that voter is now capable of holding those who represent them. So the only power that representative have is that they are leaning into that voter. Right. So I think the individual who feels that they don't have any titles, or I said, you are the most powerful in this democracy. You hold the soil by which our democracy stays healthy. And so I think at that level, I think the individual who feels that they are they don't have the credentials, I would argue them. To recommend that they go and read Dr. King. Dr. King said that he's only going to pay a certain salary to his employees because until you feel the conditions of those you're serving, you can't serve them well. And so I think the leaders must come to and be humble to those who are in community, and not the reverse. And I think those in the community think they need to be elevated. They need to. I don't think that position is a healthy leadership model in a democracy.
I like that.
That's interesting. My last question,
Like that.
Dr. Ruth, in terms of kind of piggyback up what he said, though, some just part of remarks in terms of someone watching you right now, the recipient of the Salute to Champions, and why you're here. What are some of the lasting things you have to leave with them in terms of being here today?
Yeah, for me, I became a student of social justice when one human being, a black woman named Dr. King, in my bachelor's degree, she said, I'm going to pour in, I'm going to feed this student. And I'm not talking about food, I'm talking about knowledge.
Sure.
And it only takes one human being to say, I'm going to feed, I'm going to serve this person. And she allowed for me to introduce the late John Lewis when I was getting my bachelor's. She allowed for me to meet Coretta Scott King. I didn't have a 4.0. I wasn't this rising star with the 4.
Yeah.
And she said, and I remember the 4.0s was like, why does she like you?
Yeah.
But for me, it's just one human being.
Takes one.
Just one human being.
That's incredible.
And it doesn't take any credentials to change a person's life.
Wow.
That
is
part.
right there.
That's the most important part of the whole thing.
Yeah,
right there.
right,
He said
exactly.
it takes no credentials to change a person's life. So that's outstanding. Once again, congratulations.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Looking forward to seeing you on March 1st for our luncheon, man. And James White actually recommended you. And
I'm a big fan.
So that alone is enough.
that alone, when Brother
enough for
White
me.
recommended you, that does it right there, brother. I'm telling you right now.
He said,